Welcome to the Connect Your Health to Life coaching podcast. I'm your host, Seth Lusk. I'm a master certified life coach and published author with a decade-long background working in the health, wellness, and fitness industry as a personal trainer, nutrition specialist, and life coach. If you're anything like me or the clients that I work with, then you might be struggling with some confidence issues or struggling with feeling like you're not living your most fulfilling or authentic life. You may be trying to figure out why you have these amazing desires for what your most fulfilling life would look like, but you can't seem to create consistent action in your life to reflect those desires. So join me as we dive in deep on what it means to truly live a fulfilled and authentic life from the inside out. We're going to look from the perspective of an empowered mindset and uncover some of the reasons why you might be what's holding yourself back from living that most fulfilling life. But don't worry, this isn't about blame, guilt, or shame. This is about empowering you to see. I'm going to break through some of the biggest illusions and myths that we've all been taught to believe along the way. And I'm so excited to have you with me on this journey. So my only question for you is, are you ready to start living your most fulfilling life once and for all? Then let's get started, shall we? Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. For those of you listening in for the first time, welcome. You picked a fascinating episode to listen in on as always. I say that every week because every episode that I put out, I truly believe is fascinating. But if this is your first time listening in, I want to ask you to go back and listen to last week's episode first before diving in and finishing this episode. And the reason why is that this week's episode is part 2 of a 2-part series on escape debt. So to get the most out of this episode, you'll want to go back and have a listen to last week's episode first, just so that you kind of have a little bit more context as to what we're talking about this week. So for those of you who did listen in last week, a quick little recap here. Last week we talked about what escape debt actually is and the effects that it has in our life. I talked about how to recognize some of the key areas in your life where escape begins to cause debt for you. And to show you all that the debt it's a real debt that really requires a repayment process. When we continue to create it in our life over and over again, the debt builds up. Some of the areas that we talked about last week where these debts occur would be your relationship with yourself, your relationship with other people or even things in your life, your finances, your health, both mentally and physically, your emotional reactivity, also the amount of time you spend in reactive crisis management versus time spent on the things that are truly important for you. So these are all areas in which this escape debt starts to create debt in your life. And there are many more, but these were just some of the bigger ones that I noticed that happen the most frequently in people's lives. And so those are the ones we talked about last week. If these are perking up your ears as you hear them and you didn't listen in fully last week, or you did listen, but maybe you want to go back and refresh on this, then I would suggest going back and having a listen about how attempting to escape your true emotional and human experience creates these debts for you in these areas of your life, and that these debts are very real. So last week I explained to you all how important it is that we stop brushing this off and kind of sweeping it under the rug like it's not important to pay attention to here. I opened up some pretty sensitive areas to talk about last week. I talked a bit about addiction and how at the very core of addiction is not a substance being addictive. It's not a substance abuse problem or personality problem. At the core of addiction is a belief that life is not how it should be and that it is not possible to cope with while being fully present in it. And looking at the true emotional experience of it. So there's a story there about how this is not possible to cope with. And why a person who has addictive behaviors is creating these behaviors in their life is because of that story. I told you all that at the very core of this addictive behavior is the desire to escape and the belief that this is basically the only survivable option for them in their life. I also talked with you all about how we socially normalize so many addictions to the point that we do not see them as actually being addictions anymore. Like we see them as just being such a normal behavior, or at least we're taught to think of them as innocent or these benign sort of oh, that's a cute little addiction there, or something like that. Meanwhile, addictions to things like heroin or cocaine or, I don't know, other drugs, some of the substances that our society deems as being not socially acceptable, we demonize those addictions and look at them as actually being addictions, and that they need to be dealt with, while these socially normalized ones, we just kind of like giggle about it and sweep it under the rug. I told you all last week that these addictive behaviors around food, shopping, sex, alcohol, which, although alcohol is becoming increasingly more and more socially accepted as an addiction, it's funny that not so long ago it wasn't socially acceptable, but now it is. And we also have addictions surrounding TV, internet, our phones, playing games, there's so many different addictive behaviors. And even though we're not forced into rehab centers when we play around with these methods of escape, that escape debt occurs with these addictive behaviors as well. And I began to explain how the escape debt is not necessarily dose or frequency dependent. And what I mean by that is it's not about like how much you do it or how frequently you do it. The debt is created based on the intention behind the escape behavior or the addictive behavior. In other words, it's not that you have to reach this certain threshold or level of addictive behavior as being disruptive of you being, I don't know, functioning in your life before it begins to create escape debt in your life. It merely needs the intention to escape, and then the participation in the behavior with that intent, and then automatically this starts creating these debts in your life that I talked about. I wanted last week's episode to be about awareness of escape debt, and I wanted more people to begin to see that where we are creating this in our lives, and that it's not something that is so innocent or benign. It's very much like cancer. This debt spreads to every area of our life the longer we partake in the behaviors that have the intention of escape behind them. And I know that many of you think that your version of this escape behavior is just, it's harmless, it's innocent, it's benign, and that you can keep it controlled and contained, and it doesn't actually mean anything in your life. And I know you think that it's not noticeable in other areas of your life. The truth is that so many people have this going on in their life and have trained themselves to believe this, and that this is just how life is, that there are probably quite a few people in your life who won't ever notice that there is this escape debt growing in your life because they're doing it too. However, what they will notice is this same pattern of dysfunction in their relationship with you the closer they get. And their method of dealing with this will be to become increasingly dishonest with you and trying to escape as well, just as you do with others as you get close to them and notice this familiar level of dysfunction in the relationship, of what we love to call toxicity in relationships. There is this level of almost stickiness to the relationship that feels a bit like suffocating and what we call toxic. And if you notice this pattern in a lot of your friendships or growing relationships, then my friends, that's a huge sign that you are partaking in these sort of escape behaviors. People pleasing is also an escape behavior, believe it or not. Now, we're going to talk more about that word that I just mentioned, this toxicity, this toxic thing next week, because we love to use this label of toxic as things as being toxic. But these relationships begin to feel toxic for so many of us. And I want you to begin to notice for yourself that this might be happening in your life. And do you notice yourself increasingly telling yourself that you don't have time for toxic relationships, and slowly starting to notice this feeling of toxicity in most of the relationships around you? And you think the solution is just to hide from those relationships or put up quote-unquote boundaries, which aren't really actually boundaries. They're you trying to hide from that toxic feeling that you get in that relationship and hope that they just kind of dissolve on their own. If you notice that, or you resolve yourself to have to quote-unquote stand up for yourself and put distance in this relationship, then my friend, if you see this pattern in your life, this is there's a good chance that these relationships feel toxic because of how you are showing up in them, because of the escape debt you're creating in your life by participating in escaping behaviors or addictive behaviors. You're showing up in them from a life that is based around escaping your real human and emotional experience of your life. So the way that people are able to relate to you feels toxic to you. Because guess what? They're not even relating to you. They're relating to some fake role that you're playing out there because you're hiding and escaping your life. The real you is not even showing up. So how people relate to you feels toxic to you because they can't actually relate to the real you. The real you isn't even there. But we're going to talk more about that sort of toxic label that we like to throw around next week. The point here, friends, is that we have a society that in whole has become socially programmed and accepting around this idea that we should overlook this massive problem. That it's not that important to look at. It's just so innocent. It's okay. Everyone's doing it, so it's just fine. This is how life is. And it's creating so much dysfunction in so many people's lives. But we are so busy blaming toxic people, toxic environments, toxic this and toxic that. We're so busy looking out there for what is causing this feeling in our lives. And so many of us are playing this victim role to life, like life is just so harmful to you, when the truth is that the majority of us are showing up in our own lives in a very toxic way, and that's why life feels toxic for us. And therefore, how life can relate to us and the people in it also feels very toxic to us. But it's not because they are toxic or that is toxic. It's because the way you are trying to escape and show up dishonestly in your life is creating a toxic relationship between you and everything in your life. Because that's nothing in your life can relate to the real you, because the real you is hiding and not showing up. The problem is not out there. It is in what we are thinking and believing about ourselves and our lives, and therefore how we're showing up in those lives and relating to it. And what I mean by that is that we are not actually showing up. And when we do that, everything begins to feel toxic to us. We're busy trying to escape our true experience of life and trading our true experience for some hope of an imaginary future in which life out there will suddenly be better. And in that life, we will finally feel better, and then we will choose to fully show up in our lives. But until then, we will just hide and escape. And this, my friends, is not reality. And this, my friends, plays a huge toll in all of our lives in the form of escape debt. And so many of us are doing it and laughing about it and brushing it off and pretending like it doesn't matter and encouraging each other and enabling each other to do it. And oh, it's so funny, and oh, it's so innocent. And it's not, my friends. So last week I talked with you all about beginning to see that this is not a problem that we need to sweep under the rug anymore. And this week I want to begin talking with you all about what it even looks like to begin repaying this escape debt that we are all creating in our lives. I want to talk about this not as a how-to guide though, because a how-to guide for every person doesn't exist. That's why coaches are quite helpful. And it helps in guiding each and every one of you into finding your how-to. This is why life coaches exist. It's because every person on this planet is so unique in their experience of life, and therefore why they do the things that they do and how they do them in order to try and escape. And so therefore this means that any process of change and going back to showing up authentically in life is going to be so different from person to person. The process of change is going to be as unique as people are to each other. And as coaches, we're here to help guide you into that discovery process and help you see where you are holding yourself back from that discovery and therefore that authentic, true growth in your life that is based in those true desires. So this isn't a how-to guide because I'm so tired of people misguiding other people into believing that they can put out a how-to guide and you can just go in and read it or listen to it and then just follow step by step by step and it's just going to do the same thing for you that it did for them. And then we get this very dysfunctional belief about what healing looks like from person to person, what growth looks like from person to person. And we get this very dysfunctional belief of maybe growth doesn't work for us because someone else's how-to guide didn't work. So I'm not interested in trying to tell you all that this is a how-to guide. That's not at all what I'm saying here, and I don't want anyone to think that that's what this is about. I want to be clear about that up front as we go into this with the intention of not seeing this episode as a how-to guide. I want to approach this episode with the intention, again, of awareness. Awareness that there is a process for repaying this escape debt. And that there are some common paths I see people trying to take, thinking they're going to repay this debt, only to find that what they're doing is just creating more of it. So I want to help you all out here by creating some awareness that there are some very sneaky obstacles that come up in the process of choosing to show up fully in your life. When you're used to living this life of escape and hiding, there are some obstacles that can pop up when you try and say, okay, you know what? I'm done hiding. I'm done escaping. I want to show up in my life. I want to know what that feels like to be present in my life. And this is why working with a coach is so helpful here, because coaches help you to see these obstacles, your individual obstacles and what they look like for you, not like what they look like for someone else, but for you and for what they are, instead of seeing them as being a point at which you throw your hands up in the air and start to believe that there's no way for you to create the change that you're looking to create in your own life. So, we're showing up this week with the intention of awareness here. Awareness is always our first step into change. We cannot change something if we are not aware of the patterns that exist and where they come from and why we put them into place to begin with. We cannot change something if we are not aware that the opportunity to change even exists or that we want it. Because a lot of us have convinced ourselves out of false desire that we don't want to change. And there are many reasons why people believe that. And coaches are going to help you see where you might be telling yourself you don't want to change, but the truth is, the true you wants to. But maybe you believe it's not possible. Maybe you believe it's not worth it. Maybe you believe you're too broken, or that it'll just take too long, or that it will be miserable, or that you'll have to fight yourself or resist yourself, or, deprive yourself of happiness in life in order to change. And coaches are there to show you that that's not the reality of change. That's not the reality of change. So, this process of repayment of this escape debt, it exists. But here's the thing about processes. We tend to see in our current culture that processes have this finishing point. And I want to say up front here that this is not a process that is about getting to a finishing line. This is not a process that is about, once I get here, then I will be better, then I will be good enough, then I will be fixed, or then I will be done. No. This process is the point. And what I mean by that is it's not like we're striving for a point that is why we did the process. The process is the point. Okay? The process is the rewarding part here. The process is the part where you feel good and excited. Because the process is about choice, not about results, okay? That's what this is about. Repaying this debt is not about a result that you will reach. It is about being present with a choice that empowers you in every moment that you choose it. And what I mean by that is we're not looking out at life and seeing what is happening out there or what other people's lives look like that might be repaying their escape debt. We're not looking out there to compare and see what their life looks like compared to ours. We're not out there looking and seeing like, what are the results in my life for me to decide whether or not what I'm doing is worth it. We're not looking out there for something to happen around us to validate for us that what we are doing is worth it. No, this process and the reward of it is about making a choice in every moment that the choice opportunity arises. So I want to get that clear and upfront here as we move forward. And maybe you're a little bit confused right now, and that's okay. Stick with me here, and I think this will become a little bit clearer as we go on. So where I see people typically starting to change when they come to work with me, or really where I see people starting with change in their life in general, even if they're not working with me, and it's due to a lot of social programming, they start with this desire to judge. The desire to judge their current life as somehow being bad or wrong. which sets the precedence that we should never have gotten to this point in the first place. We did something wrong, we did something bad, we shouldn't have done it. But this is not where we're starting here. We're not starting there at all, because this route of judgment is about the intention of escape again. And the reason why I say this is because we do not do anything in life that is not the best that we can do at the time that we do it. If we could have done better, we would have done better. Let that sink in, my friends. And I challenge anyone who doesn't believe me to talk to me about it. Tell me a time where you didn't do the best that you can do, and I will show you how it was the best that you could do. You know better now, or not better now, you know differently now, and you would do differently now based on what you know now. But I will show you how at any moment in your life, anything that you did was the best that you knew how to do at the time you did it. I invite any conversation about that if you disagree. Open, respectful conversation. But for the sake of this podcast, I just want you to hear me say this. We do not do anything in this life that is not the best that we can do at the time that we do it. And as I said, once we do it, we get flooded with new input and information about the result of that decision. And then we have the opportunity to choose differently based on that new information that we receive the moment that we make the choice. But here is what most of us are taught to do. We're taught to take that brand new information, and if we do not feel 1000% that we love every aspect of the information coming in as a result of that choice, we start to go into our story of our past. And we look at ourselves in that past story, and we create thoughts and beliefs about ourselves and what we did quote unquote wrong, what we did bad, what we should have done or should have done differently, to not have the results that we are telling ourselves are bad right now. And this is so cruel to do to ourselves, my friends, but we have been taught to do this to ourselves for so long. And it's so unrealistic, because the truth is that we only know that we don't want to do that behavior again because we did it, and then we're able to gather information from the result of that behavior. So to tell ourselves that our past self was bad or wrong for doing something is so cruel. Because here's the other part to this. It is escape. And you might be thinking, well, how is that escape? The truth is that in any moment we are faced with decisions. We make those decisions based on the information that we have consciously available to our mind at the time. And what that means is that sometimes, in certain situations, where we may not have developed proper, coping tools, we haven't developed certain coping tools with certain emotional experiences, sometimes information that we know somewhere in our brain isn't consciously available to us at the time that we're making a decision based on that emotional experience in the moment. And sometimes after we make the decision, that information comes consciously back available to us and we remember it, and then we'll be like, oh my God, I was so stupid. Why did I do that? And we start judging ourselves. And this again, okay, so we make decisions based on the information that we have consciously available to us at the time, and based in the emotions we are experiencing at the time, and based on what we interpret those emotions to mean and our relationship to them. So for instance, if I feel angry and I have a relationship of resistance to anger, I might storm off and try to hide my anger. Or I might be at an explosive point and start screaming and throwing things or hitting or becoming physically violent because I have been resisting the truth of that emotion for so long that I can no longer contain the energy of that emotion. The truth is that emotions are here to show us something that we are thinking and believing about our life, and they offer us an opportunity to look at that belief and thought and choose in that moment if that thought or belief is serving us to show up in the way we want to in our life. But when we resist that emotion, we don't see this. We try to escape in many ways, and this creates escape debt. And when we look back on the things that we did, and we don't look at it with truth of the true emotional experience that we resisted in the moment and that now we're resisting because we're judging ourselves instead of looking at the emotional experience and looking at why we reacted the way that we reacted and what those emotions were trying to show us at the time and what we didn't see. When we choose to go into judgment, guess what we're doing? We are again attempting to escape our true human and emotional experience. So when we notice these escape debts and we go into judgment of our past selves for getting us to this place in life where we notice those escape debts, we are again resisting emotions. We're not looking at the truth of the emotions and our experience of them that brought us to this place, and how we were making the best decision that we knew at the time up until this point, and that we have the opportunity now to choose to do differently if we want to. But most of us are unaware of that different option even existing, so you're welcome for telling you that. And I'm here telling you now, a different option exists. Instead of feeling shame and guilt and resentment and regret and then feeling those emotions come up and then wanting to get away from them as fast as possible, we have the opportunity to release judgment with the thought that I have been doing the best that I could until now. And what this does is allows us to open up to the true experience of the choices we have made, instead of seeing them through the lens of judgment and resistance. And we can even open up to the emotions of shame, guilt, and regret and see them for what they're trying to show us in our thoughts and beliefs now, so that we can be fully in our true emotional experience. And those emotions are usually there to tell us things like, first of all, that we're telling ourselves this story of should in the past that is cruel, because we're using new information that our past selves did not have available to them to judge them for the decisions that they made without that information. But also they're there so that we can see this. Guilt, shame, and regret are actually telling us a story of empowerment and love. They're saying to us, hey, you have so much inside of you wanting to come out. If you just choose to stop hiding and escaping. And right now, you're telling yourself the story and judging yourself because you know that there's so much more in you that you have to show up with right now. And in this moment, you have the opportunity to see that you want to show up as more of who you truly are. You have that desire. And because you have that desire, you have the ability to see how you can start making decisions right now to move in the direction of showing up more as your true self in this life instead of the version of you that hides and escapes. Not because that version of you is bad or wrong, but because you see now that it's not how you have to show up and it's not truly you. You see now that you have a new option and you can do something with it. That's what those emotions are truly there to show us. They can be emotions of love and empowerment and compassion. But here's the thing. The other thing is, when we release judgment, we open ourselves up to see that we don't have to escape our true human emotional experience by resisting the emotions of guilt, shame, regret, and fear. Because we can start to see them as being there to show us that we have opportunity. We don't have to feel bad about ourselves. We don't have to beat ourselves up. We can simply see, there's more to me here that I haven't been showing up as. And right now I'm being given the opportunity to see that there's more of me and that I can do something. We get to see these old escape and hiding behaviors for what they truly are about. Because you see, not only are we always doing the best that we know how to do at any moment in time, we also always have reasons that serve us for the behaviors we exhibit. Those reasons don't always continue to serve us. But when we recognize that, we then have the opportunity to choose compassion and love to change instead of judgment. When we can see how we thought that a behavior was giving us something in our life that we thought was so important for us, and we realize, wait, this isn't actually giving me what I truly want here. I don't have to keep doing this anymore. I don't have to keep escaping and hiding anymore. We can choose new behaviors that serve us now, where we are in our relationship with our life now, and keep choosing them as we move forward. But first, we will want to see that what we are trying to accomplish with the old behavior was something that we thought was serving us, so that we know how we want to show up and create that in our life in a new and empowered way that isn't about trying to escape or trying to hide. Many times, our behaviors that we use to try and escape and hide stem from coping mechanisms that we learned as a child, when we didn't have the emotional development to understand our power in life, when we were just trying to survive and make it. When we were telling ourselves a story about how dangerous life felt for us and how we needed to do whatever is possible to just survive. And we, as kids, develop these quite amazing strategies to cope with these feelings of danger and fear, to protect ourselves. And if we're never taught otherwise as adults, we will continue to show up disempowered as adults and never move into our emotional responsibility and our true power as a human being. And there are so many of us now, because of the cultural messages that we are receiving, that are stuck in perpetual emotional childhood and irresponsibility, because we're not taught to see that the coping mechanisms we developed as a child were coming from a story of complete disempowerment, coming from a story of judgment and fear, and that we have a power inside of us that we can bring out as an adult and show up with emotional responsibility and our true power. And that we can go back and look at these stories of fear and hiding and surviving and change those stories to one of empowerment and decisiveness and intention in our life. But when we realize this, when we realize that the way we are showing up in our life isn't empowered, it's not taking us where we want to go, what we want to do first is look back with openness and understanding, not judgment, in order to be able to see where and why we chose to disempower ourselves and hide and escape, so we can see how we want to do things differently and what we have been trying to create in our life up until this point with those old coping strategies that are no longer serving us. And while we were missing key information that we now have to do something different with. So the process of repaying these escape debts starts here with awareness, but also with releasing judgment of the past self. If we move into repayment of debt with judgment, we will just end up creating more of it, because judgment is about escaping the truth of our human experience again. It is about a false story of badness, evilness, wrongness, and resistance. And repaying escape debt is about intention of opening to the full and true human experience, what it means to be a human being that shows up in this life in a human body and tries to figure it out and sees what our true intention has been all along, even though we've been told stories of how bad and evil and wrong and I don't know, broken we are. By our parents, by our teachers, by our pastors, by politicians, by actors, by role models. Even though we've been told these stories all along, it's because those people were told those stories, and we can release those judgments and look back at our story that we've been showing up with without judgment. Look at it with openness and open our true power up. And this means seeing the choices we made in emotional childhood as being necessary choices to bring us to where we are today with the information we have right now that creates the awareness that we have currently, that we really have power to do more than what we've been doing, to do more of what we actually want to do. And the truth is, we all want to do that. We're just not taught to see that. We're not even taught to see that it's possible to want that or to do it. We're not taught to see that the process of change doesn't have to be one of guilt and shaming ourselves into what we should or should not have, or shaming ourselves into what we have to or need to do. It doesn't have to be about that. It can be about an authentic, open, and compassionate experience of opening ourselves up to the truth of every decision that we have made and how important it was in bringing us here to where we see I have power and I can start showing up with it and show up truthfully in my life. And when I do, life doesn't change, but how I interact with it does, and that changes everything. So this is the part of this repayment process where it is so essential to be still, to be present, and to be open. But is where I see most people's tendency is to resist, shut down, hide, run away, and escape again. And this is why I say to work with a coach, because you want to remember that you have a lot of programming to have this reaction and to not pay attention to it either. And a coach is going to be there to help you notice it and see, here, this is your opportunity. You're doing this behavior right here, and let's see why. And to show you where you have power to make a different choice that is one of an authentic want for you. Not one of should to, or have to or need to or shouldn't have. So we see the desire to stop escaping. We choose a path that is not about judgment. Then what? I told you all that this is about a process, not a destination, and that the process is exciting and rewarding. And I wasn't making that up, okay? So this process is about intention. Remember that. It's not about getting to a place where we are allowed to feel good. You are already in that place where you are allowed to feel good. That's where we start the journey. But the desire to rush to get to a place will be a desire that robs you of this experience. And this desire is a desire of escape. The reward of this experience is being present with the process and seeing what is unfolding for you as you are present in the process. Seeing new possibility. Seeing how your thoughts change and how you have power to choose with intention those thoughts. And as they change, you see how your relationship with life changes, and therefore how you feel about life changes, even though life does not change. And you begin to see this power inside of you that you had been hiding from yourself all of this time. And when that relationship with life changes, and you start to see your power, and you start to see how your life, how you feel about it changes, and how you show up in it is completely different now. That's the reward of the process. This process is about noticing that power within you growing and growing. And as you stay present with it, you begin to notice that there's not a bottom to it. There's not a bottom to this well of power. You get to see and set the intention to just keep going deeper and deeper at a pace that is authentic for you. There's no rush to get somewhere. There's no bottom to hurry up and get to. You won't be better there. And I know that's a foreign concept for so many of us. I want to offer an explanation as to why this is the truth here. Who we are and how we show up in this life are two completely different things. This life is about uncovering and expressing. It's not about changing who we are. Who we are was already set before we even showed up on this planet. Who we are already existed. Their worth was already decided. So it's not about changing who we are. So many of us get into a rush to get somewhere because we see that the way we are showing up in this life as a being is who we are. And we want to hurry up and change who we are because we think we need to be better. But I want you to notice something here. In this entire process, who we are has never changed because who we are was decided before we arrived in this life, and it will still be the same person when you leave this life. The worth of that being has never and can never change. You are already 1000% worthy. You will always be 1000% worthy. This life is about using this world and this body to learn how we can express the value of that being in this life, in this form of consciousness. And I personally believe that the well of how we express is so vast. It's so infinite in its beauty and power as we begin to see who we truly are and how endless that being is. So there is never actually a destination. We have the exciting opportunity to be present, to uncover and express more and more of who we already are in this life as we learn to see more of who we are. Until the moment we take the final breath in this body and in this life, and we return to who we really are and leave the limitations of this expression behind. We have this beautiful journey of finding out all of the possibility of what we can create in this life when we recognize who we already are and choose to stop hiding and instead choose to open to that being and their endless power and their love and their compassion and their depth and reach within ourselves, feel that longing that that being has to be fully expressed in this life. And then we have this exciting journey of finding out the ways that we can show up and express that through this life. And in the final breath, we get to release the limitations of this life and go back to the limitlessness of who we've always been this entire time. But in this life, the key is remembering who we are, not becoming. It's about being in this journey and remembering, and then using every opportunity in this life as we remember to show up and express that being to the world. So my friends, the true joy here is the journey. It is in the discovery of remembering. So many of us are trying to hurry up and become something and get to a point that we miss out on seeing our true selves. We miss out on the true joy of remembering who we are and uncovering that person and shedding away the layers of limitations that we've placed on our worth and who we truly are. The being experiencing this life through the body that you entered this life in, through the story that we've created about ourselves. That's the joy, is being in that experience and experiencing that excitement of what if? What if we shed away another layer of limitation and set the intention to, I no longer need to escape. I don't need to hide. I'm more worthy than I could ever begin to express in this life. And I'm here to find out what is possible when I open myself up to seeing what is possible when I choose to be present and keep expressing that being. And let go of the belief that I need to hide and escape. I know this all sounds a bit out there for a lot of you. I get it. I get it. We're taught something so far removed from that truth. And when I started my intention of showing up, this message felt so far away from the story I was telling myself about who I was and what I needed or had to do or should do with my life. But I felt something in me saying, it's okay, Seth. You are not far away at all. Just show up, get excited, and uncover. All you ever have is this moment right now. So will you choose right now to uncover and show up? And my friends, I chose to uncover and show up, and I'm still choosing it in this moment as I speak to you. I still find myself wanting to hide and escape. Of course, I find that human desire to do so. I have many stories about why I want to do that, why I think that might help me. I have so many stories to uncover and discover, but I'm excited about that. Because here's the thing, every time I encounter a new story that tells me, Seth, you should hide, about how I'm not good enough, about how other people might look at me and see me, about how my life isn't good enough yet, I know when I come across one of these stories now that I am on the edge of a new layer to peel back and uncover more of who I truly am. And when I get to see what is behind that layer, I will get to show up and express more of that in the world around me. So I feel excited to be right where I am right now in this journey of life. And to show up as where I am right now and figuring out the endless worthiness of the being that I am. And feel the reward of being so endlessly worthy and knowing so is everyone else around me. If they would just be present and open themselves up to it too. And I don't even know the half yet of just how worthy this being is. There's so much more there. And as I feel the love for myself and everyone around me grow, as I uncover that worthiness of who I am and who we all are, I get excited to know. I get to keep uncovering and finding more and more as long as I'm here. I get to discover what is possible to create in this life as more and more of who I am gets to show up in this life. I do not have to become anything. I just have to remember and uncover and show up. That is the rewarding and exciting part of repaying escape debt, my friends, because it's not about laboring and toiling and trying to become. It's about remembering and awakening this deep well of endless power and worth that's always been flowing in you and bringing that into your conscious awareness and expressing it in this life. You get to be there for that experience when you let go of the intention to believe that life is too hard for you, that you're not good enough, that life is not good enough. When you get to let go of the thoughts of what other people might be thinking about you and judging you for, what you think and judge yourself for, you get to choose with intention of remembering instead and being present as the indescribable magnificent worthiness of your being begins to show up in your life and show you each and every moment of this life what is possible for you as you uncover more of that being. Keep uncovering. Keep showing up. Get excited because you're bringing something into this world that has never been seen in this world before. And I know this is true because you haven't brought it here before. And that's why you are here, to show up and show us how you bring it into this world when you stop escaping, and remind the people around you to bring it too. So I have a question for you here. Are you as excited to bring it in this life as I am? Are you excited to see what would be possible in your life if you chose to stop believing that escape is the best option you have? Are you excited to see what indescribable possibilities await you when you remember who you are instead of trying to become something more worthy? And you choose to show up in this life as that being that you remember. Because I can't even, I get so excited, I can't even speak properly when I talk about this. I'm so excited to see more and more people in this world choosing that. And to see each and every one of you choose to bring to this life what you were put here to remember and bring to this life. The body that we are in, the life that we are in, was designed to remind us of what we came here to bring to this life. It is designed to challenge us to remember what we showed up here in this life to bring. This is the exciting and rewarding part of repaying escape debt, is the process, is that intention and that excitement that at any moment we are given a powerful and beautiful choice. Either escape and hide out of fear, resentment, regret, shame, guilt, or we show up and uncover for the world what we put ourselves here to show is possible when you remember who you are. I get goosebumps talking about this. I'm so excited. I'm excited to speak this truth to you all. And I know that many of you might feel a little bit of confusion, might feel a little bit of resistance, but I also know you feel this little tug maybe. Maybe it feels far away. Maybe it feels like not that important to pay attention to. Maybe it feels like it would be easier to dismiss it and just keep on escaping. And you can do that. You can do that for as long as you want to. I'm not going to judge you for it. You don't have to judge yourself for it if that's what you want to do. But I'm here to tell you that you don't have to. And that there is an exciting journey that awaits you when you choose to not want to escape anymore. And I am more than ready to grab your hand, support, and guide you into that process of uncovering, remembering, and showing up. Just know that. You are surrounded in this life by beings in this world just like you who want to wake up too. You're surrounded by beings who are choosing to wake up and are excited to see you choose to do the same. Reaching out and asking to be reminded of who you are might be your first step into waking up and showing us, this world, and yourself, your true power and what you're here for. So don't be afraid to reach out. That's all I have for you all today, and I know it's a whole lot, but I'm leaving it here, okay? I love you all. Get excited. I'll talk with you all again here next week. Until then, ciao. Hey, thank you for listening in this week. I hope you enjoyed the content of this episode. If you did, please subscribe or follow this podcast to receive the newest episodes every week as I bring them to you here on the Connect Your Health to Life coaching channel. Ratings, reviews, and comments are always appreciated. These allow me to know more of what my listeners would like in the podcast and allow for more people who may be searching for a podcast just like this one to find the Connect Your Health to Life coaching channel. If you would like more information about me and the work that I do with my clients one-on-one, then please visit my website at www.slch.ch. Again, that is www.slch.ch. You can also find me on social media on Instagram at SethLusk_coaching. Again, that is SethLusk_coaching. And on Facebook in my free Facebook group community called A Healthy Life Connection. We would love to have you in the group, and it's only 3 membership questions that you have to answer to join. And again, it's entirely free. And if you need any further information or just want to say hello, feel free to send me an email directly at slusk.health@slch.ch. Again, that is slusk.health@slch.ch. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to our next time together. Ciao.